Singapore. We're here, Tim. Well, we're not in Singapore. We're in Canada, where it's getting a little colder. But friends of ours, friends of the show, are there right now. And Tim, I think we got to start today with Christian Horner. I mean, this guy, even when he's not around the track, he grabs headlines. And it's funny, he's got nothing to do with this weekend, and yet everything. Io Komatsu this morning revealed that Christian Horner appeared out of the smoke and the fog in front of the Haas garage somewhere in Britain and said, or actually in Italy, because they're in Italy, and said, I can lead Haas. And so, Tim, what do we know about this? And it's pretty interesting that Io would just kind of come out and say this. What's the sort of the latest on what he said and what you think this means?
I think, when it comes to Haas, there were exploratory conversations that did happen between the two parties. And then, Komatsu revealed as much as he could. Yeah, obviously he couldn't go into a ton of detail with any of that, but essentially it didn't really go far from the conversations that were had. I assume those conversations would roll down to from Horner looking to purchase or looking to take over or looking to lead a consortium that could come in and buy up the team. Mm-hmm. Because I think that is what, at the end of the day, will happen with Christian Horner if he wants to come back into F1. Now, Gene Haas, obviously, he's been doing this for quite a few years now, and I don't really think that this is something he really would want to give up on just yet. And I think he gets a lot from it still with Haas Automation, being able to sell his business tools to other manufacturers, other people around the world. It's good for him it allows him to open new contacts and new markets and things of that. So I don't see Gene just picking up and selling to just anybody. I don't see Gene putting Christian in a place of power, because you have Io Komatsu, who's done a really great job as a team principal. Yep. And then obviously you have Gene Haas, who's just above him. I don't think Gene would want anything in between those two, because it may just be a little too much going on. And so then
Gene likes a tight operation.
Yeah, exactly. And so I don't really see anything playing out there just yet or into the future. There has been a lot of reports, though. I mean, you and I were talking about this before we came on. Like, how many reports have been circulating?
I just think it's too early for any of these things to be super serious, and it's not. And you made a comment off the air, which we're going to get to, about how his quote unquote gardening leave or the expiry of his contract is going to work. But what I was saying to Tim was, listen, it seems to be like it's too early. This guy was just paid £100 million by Red Bull to go away, and the idea that he'd instantly have a deal ready to go with a consortium of players, and I wouldn't doubt that he does have some sort of loose confederation of people that have expressed interest in the idea. But Tim, one of the things that, we heard almost instantly when he was let go is, he's coming back and it's going to be with Alpine and he's going to buy it. Mm-hmm. And, I feel like these things, people don't realize, it's not like you go to the grocery store with $100 million and go, here it is. Like, mm-hmm. These things require an enormous amount of research and accountants looking at the books, and you need to know what you're buying. You're signing NDAs, you're meeting in person, and like these take a while. So any sort of snap decision by Christian Horner or any team that might be looking to bring him on as a potential owner / team principal, a la Toto Wolff, it just seems premature. Now, interesting that he would approach Haas, because, I think they and Alpine, if you're just kind of looking from the outside, those are the two that seem most willing from the outside to sell. But I'm not sure, as you mentioned, there is a business benefit to Gene Haas having this team, and I think people forget that. I know he likes a lean operation. I know they've got less staff than everybody else, but hey, it seems to work for them. They're doing pretty well this year. Mm-hmm. I think if they're ever going to have championship aspirations, they're going to have to hire more people. But, Gene might not have championship aspirations. He might just have business aspirations. And Alpine, same thing. They've stopped making Renault power units for Formula One, but that Renault Alpine brand has been so long associated with Formula One. It is a marketing vehicle, especially if the team was good. You know, I have a hard time believing that they're just going to sell out of it. And so, I mean, maybe they are, but they've got that consortium from the Americas of like the athletes and like Pat Mahomes and Ryan Reynolds and, you know, Travis Kelce and stuff that already own 10% of it. So I'm just not sure. I'm not sure that either of those things, if they were to happen, would happen quickly. So Tim, I guess my question to you is, you know, we kind of know that Haas they want to continue on the way that they are. You know, where do Alpine stand on something like this?
I think you said it perfectly, right, Adam? It's still just a big marketing tool for them and for their product. Alpine cars over in Europe. Obviously, we don't sell them here at the moment. Maybe that could change. I don't know. However, it is still that marketing tool for them. And so what is their overhead at the moment, right? They did away with the engine program, so it's gone. Right. So now Renault doesn't need to worry about building an expensive, sophisticated power unit for 2026 and beyond, which would have really sunk that company. And so that's gone. Right. Okay. So then what else do they have left? Okay. So they've got their base in the UK that's going to build the car. They've done a deal with Mercedes to get components from them and power units for the foreseeable future. And if we look at this as a marketing and branding exercise, which it is, they look to be in not too bad shape. If you think about the future, and let's say Mercedes is competitive next season. The power unit is, again, top of the line, like they were when they started 2014 with the new hybrid power units. And Alpine makes a decent car. And at this point, we're not just talking about Alpine being a back of the field team, which they kind of are right now. We're talking about Alpine battling for top fives, maybe a potential third place here or there, potential races. Okay, so then what does that do to the value of the brand? It obviously increases. It also increases its your franchise. It increases the amount that is worth, like in any sport, NFL, NHL, NBA, your franchise value tag goes up. And naturally, with this sport in the direction that it's going in, that franchise value is going to keep going up. These things aren't coming down. And so Alpine could look at this and say, why would we just go and sell to anyone right now when 2026 and beyond could be some pretty fruitful years for us?
Yes.
And we could sell it for way more later on down the line if we really wanted to.
Well, I mean, I'm just looking at an article here, Tim, from Black Book Motorsport. The average F1 team valuation went up 44% from 23 to 24.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah, that's
right. And Alpine were valued at 1.4 billion in 2023. So add another 44% to that. That's roughly 500 million. At this point, that was last year. At this point, Tim, in the year, Alpine's probably worth $2.2 billion. Like there is not a and if Renault wants capital, all they have to do is borrow against the Alpine brand, the shares in the F1 team, and you got it, right? And it's tax free. I think there's I think when we're looking at these scenarios now, we have to look at them differently. And this is going to be different for Formula One because, for so many years, it was rich people, I'm okay losing money, and eventually I'll sell out of the team unless your name was Ferrari or McLaren, right? And Williams too. And eventually Williams, sold out of the program as well. This is a new era of franchise value. And one thing that really kind of strikes me when we talk about the sale of a Formula One team now is eventually we're going to get to 12 teams here. I believe that.
Yep.
And as soon as we get to 12 teams, we are capped. There are no more teams. You look at most North American sports are on the franchise model, right? Mm-hmm. European, much different. There's there is franchises, but there's no real limit to them, and they're far more localized, and you can move up leagues and down leagues, which from a sporting perspective is so cool. Like it's the coolest thing.
Yeah.
But from a business perspective, you want to know that, hey, if the Saudi sovereign wealth fund buys into my league, I'm still going to be able to compete because there's going to be a cap, right? Whereas we've seen with like franchises like PSG in the French league, I think Newcastle, Man City, Man United, Arsenal, like they have these crazy rich owners that nobody can compete with. So bringing it back to Formula One, Alpine or Haas selling before that 12th team comes in, I think would be ridiculous and a bad idea.
100%.
I just like then there's only 12 and that's it. That's all there will ever be. That's it.
And about the 12th team, we can talk about this now openly, but I mean, when I was speaking with Otmar Safnauer about this back in December last year, when he revealed to me that he was the guy that is trying to get a 12th team into Formula One, and then obviously he confirmed it on the record with us at TSN not too long ago. It is interesting to think that, if it's not Otmar Safnauer, then it could possibly be Christian Horner.
Right.
And the fact that Horner is able to just waltz into Haas and have a conversation like that with Gene tells me that he must have backing. And this guy knows people who's got money, right? So if he's able to put together a consortium, something that is proper, I don't think there would be a massive back and forth like there was with Andretti trying to get a team onto the grid for so many years, right? That dates back to 2022, I think it was, or 2021, when Andretti was trying to buy Sauber Alfa Romeo at the time, and that deal sort of fell apart. But it still goes to show you that with Christian Horner, I mean, the guy has a lot of weight behind him. He has all the championships behind him. He knows Formula One inside and out. So for him, he could be that 12th team, right? And I think when you bring it back to Alpine, their value obviously is going to keep going up. I think it's smart for them to hold on to what they've got. It's a good value asset at this moment for the company Renault as a whole. And then you look at Haas. That's an interesting team at the moment. Obviously, they've got that Toyota partnership agreement that came online for them last season. It's still going through a bit of a teething phase where they're trying to figure out how can Toyota help in certain situations with the car, especially for next season. Who's to say that, like, if Haas hits the ground running for 2026, that Toyota doesn't take a stronger interest and maybe purchases part of Haas or buys into the program. And now if you're Gene, now you're looking at this like,
that makes sense to me.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. You got to make it make sense to the guy.
Exactly.
So I'm curious, and I would be curious, Tim, because I know how competitive the sport is. How many of Otmar's group that Christian Horner may or may not approach in the coming weeks? Like if Otmar's got a real
100%.
group, I'm sure Christian Horner would be like, "Hey, man, I'm gonna, he might be Otmar, but I'm Christian. I've won world championships recently."
Yep.
And no disrespect to Otmar, because I think he's great and he's a fan favorite and that sort of thing. But that's how these guys operate. It is cutthroat. They don't care.
Yeah.
So very, very curious to watch. Now, Christian may not even come back to Formula One right away, right? There's other opportunities, Tim, like you were kind of talking about that.
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of different stuff out there, right, for him to go into. I mean, once sort of January 1st, 2026 hits, like he's free to go and do and play wherever he sort of wants to. There isn't a gardening leave that is really holding him back like that usually happens with most folks who work for F1 teams. They get placed on a gardening leave, and then that gardening leave is determined by time. How long is it going to be? I mean, Adrian Newey, I think he probably cut one of the best deals getting out of Red Bull, being able to go to Aston Martin. For him, it wasn't even a year. So, I mean, so his gardening leave was actually really interesting to look at. Now Christian Horner's as well. I think he could go anywhere. He could go to WEC. He could buy a WEC team. He could create a new hypercar team and bring that into WEC, go and compete there. I mean, Liberty Media now owns MotoGP.
Yep.
Who's to say he can't go over there and do something? I mean, is the FIA interested in having Horner's expertise? I mean, I'm sure they would love that, right? He knows a lot of stuff behind the scenes in F1. So they could literally lean on him a lot for information. Could he consult? Could that be something he could go and do as well? So there are a number of different options that are available to him. And it makes sense that we've heard Haas, Alpine, Aston Martin was another one. Like, it makes sense that he would be also doing the rounds, right? Like, I'm sure he's talked to pretty much almost every team. Like Ferrari.
Yeah.
If things don't go well with Frederick Vasseur, where does that leave him with the 2026 program? What happens if that program isn't very good at Ferrari?
Yeah.
What happens if 2027 is not very good at Ferrari? What happens to Frederick Vasseur? Could they bring Horner in to replace him?
Imagine
There's
Horner
so
and
many
Hamilton.
things. Oh yeah,
That'd be, man. I love it. Now, I want to say Charles Leclerc said in the press conference this morning that he doesn't think Ferrari. He's like, it's not likely we're going to win a race this year. Is that just him being a pessimist or playing it down, or do you think he's actually onto something there? Because that's not great to hear.
Every time we hear from Leclerc lately, he always downplays everything, and it's like he's not like serious. Like, I don't want to say he's not serious; he's very serious. What I'm trying to say is that whenever he's put the question of like, "Hey, how do you think things are going to go this weekend?" It's always like, "Yeah, probably not very good. Yeah, I don't really know we're going to be competitive there," and then boom, turn around and they're like one of the quicker teams on the grid, and it's like, I don't think you're telling us everything, man. Like when at the end of Friday practice in Azerbaijan, one of the reporters was like, "Hey, like, how'd it go out there? What do you think for the weekend?" He's like, "Yeah, I don't know. It's not looking very good." And I'm like, "Come on, man. You say that every time." And then Saturday rolls around and I'm like, free practice 3, see how quick the Ferraris are, how quick they can be. And I'm like, they're going to be up there battling for a pole position. There's no question. And then obviously they stack it into the wall, and one thing leads to another, starting just inside the top 10. So I think, Adam, when we take a look at what is Ferrari's history at this race over the last few seasons, they've done quite well. Obviously, Carlos Sainz being one of the only other drivers in F1 to win a race in 2023 to break up the Red Bull dominance. That was in a Ferrari. So I think Ferrari could have a potentially good weekend here if they're able to figure out balance and setup. And also Lewis looks a lot more comfortable in this car as well over the last couple of races. So that's positive for Lewis. And yeah, I think I'd be interested to see how Ferrari does go this weekend, because I think it's going to throw a wrench into some other teams' plans, namely McLaren.
Mm-hmm. Well, I am curious about that. Now, before we get to it, Tim, how about we go to our little track drive? I want to take us through the Singapore Grand Prix, and I said I want Tim to take us through, and I'm going to host it, but Tim's going to explain why this track is so tricky. You want to go to this race? Don't be Singapore. Ha ha. Ha ha, Tim. It's Singapore. We're here. And
very strong economy in Singapore.
Very strong economy. Very, very wealthy place to be. Apparently, it's absolutely stunning. And it is one of the most challenging races on the calendar, Tim, because of the physicality of it. Now, our racing simulator does not have that type of humidity, I would say.
Well, I don't know. It's pretty hot in here.
It can get hot in here. Tim's been in here practicing. So why don't we go ahead and kick it off?
Can we turn the air conditioning?
It's on. It's just not very good. Okay. So let's get out on the track, because, I think what a lot of people liked about the last time we did one of these is you slowed down and kind of talked about some of the trickier parts, what drivers need to be looking for. So, let's do that a little bit here. Obviously, we can't do every corner on this course, otherwise we'll be here a couple hours. But let's talk about the trickier areas that we're going to be watching out for this weekend as the drivers take to the track. And this is one we'll just say straight up, Red Bull has not done well at. And so they're on a bit of a hot streak right now. If you're Laurent Mekies, if you're Max Verstappen, what are you looking for this weekend?
just to try and keep pace with the McLarens if you want to kind of stay in this championship fight. I mean, this is going to be McLaren territory. We'll explain more as to why it will be McLaren territory. But this could also be a weekend, Adam, where the McLarens try to put some daylight between themselves and Max.
Yeah, so let's have a look at this track here. Obviously, a night race, which is always so cool. And Tim, I got to ask you, as a driver at night, I know it's obviously the course is kind of lit up, not like Le Mans where it's, it gets literally dark, but, night races, how are they different from a day race other than your schedule?
Honestly, to be perfectly honest, that's it. This is just your schedule. I mean...
So it's body clock.
Yeah, like these lights that they use, and people may not know this, but they're literally like this big.
Oh, really?
And there are thousands that are placed and scattered along each part of the track, but they are so bright that it feels like it's daytime.
Okay.
So it lights everything up. They're really... For the driver, it's good visibility. So there's nothing that would get in the way of that. I mean,
no
as
sun
a
in your eyes,
spectacle,
that sort of thing.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
As a spectacle, though, it's incredible.
Oh,
like it's
the
really,
best.
really cool to see a night race, especially here in Singapore. But let's start off with turn number one. I mean, obviously, we'll just pretend we're on a push lap. And like, what are the finer details? Like, one of them is trying to get the rear end to kind of swing out a little bit under your braking so you can tackle a part of this curve. Now, the drivers aren't going to be able to take too much of it, but they want to be able to take enough to be able to sort of straight line turn number 2 here. And you can pretty much, in the F1 car, take about this much curbing at this track here, keeping that left-hand wheel just outside of that white line that you see in front of us here. And you can straddle this, but you can also keep accelerating as you're heading up to turn number 3. This is a pretty hard, sharp brake down, maybe downshift from 4th gear to 2nd. But the big thing, Adam, is trying to get out of here without generating like a lot of wheel spin, because tires are going to be a big talking point for this weekend on a quali lap, because the soft tire that they're using here is one of the softest compounds that they're going to have. The heat that's going to be generated at this track in these tires is going to affect you later in the lap.
Got it.
So if you're like going to hammer the car coming out of here, which you probably could do, you're going to generate a bit of wheel spin, but it's also going to up the tire temperature, and that's going to affect you later on in the lap.
Got it.
Like that will play a role when we get to a lot of the twistier bits. So it's always good to squeeze the power on, get up through the gears, and as we're coming down towards turn number 5 here, again, you can take a bit of this curb, but you'll see the drivers are going to come all the way out to this wall as they keep accelerating, again, using all of the road, which is really important, especially at a street circuit, trying to use all the road. There's going to be points where there's going to be places where you want the car to just sort of flow into the corner, like through here. This is probably 3rd gear. They're going to want to let the car come out to here, making sure not going all 4 wheels off. Straightforward 90-degree turn. Nothing really special here. Again, the exit, just making sure you're easy on the gas. Again, coming up to another sort of 90-degree left-hander, squeezing on the throttle, getting a good exit because this is a nice long straightaway. But as we come up to turn number 10 here, this is going to be sort of McLaren territory where it's going to start. Because what's going to happen is when you're coming up to turn 10 here, you're getting in, and the drivers will start to accelerate around here, and the rear of the car kind of swings out a bit, and it's sort of like if this were the corner and this were the car, it kind of does one of these.
Right.
Like you kind of want to be accelerating while you're kind of bouncing around it, not turning the wheel too much, because when you come in, one steering input on the steering wheel, holding it there all the way around until it's time to quickly change directions for this right-hander. So this is, you're going to be sharp stab of the brake and turning. You don't want to be braking while the wheel has this type of lock in it. You want to make sure you're braking while the steering wheel is either straight or starting to go straight to right. And then you're squeezing on the power. Again, this is really slow speed stuff, but quick change of direction, left to right. This is really McLaren territory through here. And again, you're coming in through here. Steering wheel is going to have lock in it as you're going to come up to the hairpin turn. I believe this is 13. downshift into second. And again, remember when I said about the tires generating a lot of heat in them? This is one of these turns where if you've generated too much heat, you're going to really screw yourself on the exit. So second gear coming in, carry a bit of speed, and just feather the throttle on as you're coming all the way up towards the wall. And just squeeze it on and then go up through the gears. Because if you hammer the gas, you're going to spin the rear tires and you're probably going to spin out.
So I guess, one of the things that it's funny, this part of the year, people should be confident in what their car is, even if their car isn't that good. But a lot of drivers still aren't, because the cars, a lot of them stopped development a few races ago, or half a season ago. And one of the things that, like Daniel Ricciardo, when he stepped into a McLaren, he never got used to was their brakes. So how important is confidence in your ability to brake around a course like this?
Yeah, it's big time important, because there's lap time to be gained, like we talked about in Azerbaijan. But there are some interesting corners, like this section coming up here, where you want to brake, but you don't want to brake too hard, because you don't want to kill all of your speed.
Right.
Because with this next section that's coming up, it's very flowing, and you want it to be a fast flowing section. So we'd come up to it. This is probably about 7th or 8th gear, hard on the brakes. You're going all the way down to about 3rd gear. You're going to swing it in, take some of this curb. You're carrying speed, and you're just going to squeeze on the power and drive it straight towards the wall. Here, it's fast corner. It's just a downshift. Take a bit of that curb, and then it's flat out all the way through. Coming up here, again, right, you don't want to be too hard on the brake, but you want to make sure you're slowing the car enough that you can get a bit of that curb, come in, brake.
How does the repeated catching of, especially that first corner, how does that affect your floor?
It does a little bit. You have to, some of these curbs that are here, I've noticed with the game, and it is like that in real life a little bit, is the fact that some of the curbing you can take, some of it you can't. Like this right here, you can't take this curb.
No.
This is going to really mess you up.
Yeah.
This one in particular. So the 90-degree corners, don't expect to see these guys getting up on here.
Because that could pop the whole side of the car.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
It'll just bump the car out too much, where you're going to ruin the lap and the potential performance of the lap. Could also send you into the wall, depending on how much speed you're taking into the turn as well. But the drivers will know that when they do their exploratory laps, walking the track and stuff like that. They'll have seen all this stuff. So it's a great question. This is a great track to experiment with. What kind of curbs can we take? What kind of curbs can't we take? How much of these curbs can we take? How much of these curbs are going to help the car? How much of them are going to really...
Right. Now, before we wrap up here, some people describe this and Jeddah and some other of these street circuits as basically Monaco but longer. How easy is it going to be passing, and how important is Saturday qualifying?
Yeah, it's going to be extremely important come qualifying. It's a very difficult track to pass on, even with the new remodeled section that they've done here. It's going to be really, really hard. There's not a ton of passing potential you can do here. So qualifying is just going to be super important for these guys on Saturday. And it's also really fun to watch. These guys really at this track, it's like Monaco, only faster.
They throw it.
Yeah. These guys attack this racetrack. It's pretty awesome.
Well, Tim, you know what? We'll get back to the show, but thank you so much for watching. And Tim, thank you so much for breaking it down.
No problem.
Don't be Singapore. So, Tim, one of the things that happened a couple of years ago on this track, and we mentioned it in our little drive-through there, that is just the oppressive heat. Even though it's a night race, it's just so humid and hot that, there have been guys, somebody was sick in their helmet a few years ago. Wasn't it Lance?
Well, George was sick last year. He got heat stroke. So okay. He literally didn't make the media pen following the race last season because he was so dehydrated, obviously, and the heat just literally beat him down that he was getting sick. I knew George was sick afterwards. I didn't know the level of it until Mercedes was he was puking his guts out, and I was like, oh man, he must have been so heat stroked, unbelievable.
Yeah, no kidding. And this is one of those times where Formula One's okay, maybe it's time to innovate, because we've got every driver telling us we're feeling like crap after these races, and it's a health issue. And, they are piloting cars that go 300 kilometers an hour. So, and it's concrete medians. It's not like there's runoff areas. So they are putting in, for the first time, the cooling suits. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So what does this entail? And how much of a difference do you think it'll actually make for the drivers? And is there a weight issue with the cars?
So if we go back to 2023 Qatar and the heat that was there for that weekend, and you had drivers that were, I remember Lance was like borderline almost passing out in some of the corners because he heat stroked as well, and a lot of the drivers did. Logan Sargent was getting sick in the car. They had to pull him out of the race because he was just so heat stroked that he couldn't continue. And so that became obviously a huge safety concern for the FIA. And so they've invented these cool suits. Now, cool suits, the driver can wear them if he so chooses throughout a race weekend. But when the FIA issues a mandate that there is a heat hazard declaration, and that can be mandated when it's over 31 degrees Celsius throughout a race, or they are predicting that it's going to be, they can basically initiate this technical directive that's in the sporting regulations now. And that means that the teams have to run the cooling suit, the cooling vest. There are some drivers who have done it before. George used it in Bahrain this year, I think it was. Mm-hmm. And he didn't have too many issues with it. There are some drivers who have tested it, and for them, the hoses that are inside the vest itself can be very uncomfortable because of you have to remember the G-forces, right? So a driver turns into a corner, you've got a massive amount of weight that is, shifting your organs, obviously, but it's also pushing you into the seat. And it can push you so hard that, it's not like go-karting where you can break a rib. You can get close to it. And when you have another piece of pipe or tubing or just something that's not right in your seat, that gets compressed into your body. So these little hoses can get compressed in between your ribs. They can get compressed into your back, into your spine, like all over the place, essentially, where it would run right across your chest. So, I mean, some of the drivers find that a little uncomfortable. Well, very uncomfortable. Some don't like running it because it hurts. And so I think for this weekend, we're going to really find out the drivers who really like it, the drivers who don't. It does have a weight additive to it, Adam, like you would so rightly put it. And obviously more weight in the car is going to make you slower. So when this heat advisory or the heat declaration gets put into effect by the FIA, everyone has to run these components, so everyone has the same amount of weight in the car, whether or not they run the cooling vest or they don't. Okay. So that is covering off the sort of the weight issue, where that does play a factor big time. But I like the steps that the FIA is at least taking in all this. It's something they've always taken very seriously, is safety. And this race is oppressively hot, man. Like, it is 60 degrees in the cockpit, and these guys are working out. Heart rate is close to their threshold sometimes, especially in qualifying in the race. I mean, some of them are running heart rates that are like tempo pace for them. That's really hard. It's really hard for 90 minutes to 2 hours. And so this is a long race. It's a race where these guys really suffer. Like, these athletes suffer in this race. And so having something that can alleviate some of the heat, I mean, I think is a good thing. And it's good that the FIA have done this.
It'll be interesting to see through qualifying how they feel about it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to be the first I guess free practice too. I'm sure there will be some complaints. These guys are very particular, and they love things the way that they have it. But on the flip side of that is, what's the solution? You can't go without it, or you shouldn't go without it. So,
yeah.
Really, really interesting stuff there, Tim. Now, talking about the cutthroatness of the sport, and we were talking about that a little bit with Christian Horner earlier. I want to touch on Alex Dunne, who was a part of the McLaren program and was cut today. And I want to know the significance of this. This is a young, talented driver. You get in the McLaren driver program, you're probably already a career driver. You may not be a Formula One driver, but you get in the Red Bull program, the McLaren program, the Mercedes program. You get into those pipelines. There's plenty of places for you to be successful elsewhere. Indy, WEC, IMSA, like wherever you want to go, you can do it. My question to you is, why was he cut? And, what's in the future for somebody like that? Can he still make a go of open wheel racing at the highest level?
From those who I've spoken with, it sounds like it was pretty amicable, like both of them agreeing not to go forward with this partnership. Alex Dunne's a very talented racing driver, extremely talented. Does he deserve to be in Formula One? I mean, I think he does. Like I think he's very good. I think yes, I do. I really do. And I think he deserves a shot. Now for McLaren, it's pretty hard for them to give him that opportunity, right? I mean, they have two all-star drivers. You're Zach Brown. You're not letting either one of these guys walk away from this team because you're going to need them. They're incredible. So why would you do that? So where does that put a junior driver who is in the McLaren pipeline, who is kind of pressing up against that? I'm going to be ready to go here in the next year and a half to 2 years.
Right.
And there's no way, unless there's a massive falling out between both Lando and Oscar, which I don't see happening. I mean, it could, but I don't see it. Then you're not going to have any room for him.
Yeah.
And so I think there were conversations about, hey, maybe bringing him over to the IndyCar team.
Yeah. Hey, that's cool.
I don't think, though, that's the way Alex wants to go. Like, I don't feel that is where he thinks he belongs just yet. I think he still wants to try and push for an F1 seat. So he has had conversations with Helmut Marko. And there is something going on there between Alex Dunne and Red Bull Racing.
Interesting.
I think he takes another year in Formula 2. I think he enters that Red Bull Racing program, and I think he's going to be one of the drivers that would push for a Racing Bull seat in the near future.
Well, okay, so that's fascinating because that would mean Dunne and Bortoleto gone from the system for McLaren in 2 years. Within a year and a half of each other.
Yeah,
now, they do have, and Zach Brown says it, and I agree, maybe because I'm a McLaren fan, but also because they are winning and whatever. I think they've got the best overall driver lineup. I really do. And listen, that you're talking about, a sport with Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton. But I think in terms of how they operate as a team, as much as those McLaren rules have been, or papaya rules have been made fun of and examined and whatever, They do work well. They do put the team first, and both of them are signed to long-term deals. Is McLaren letting Alex Dunne go similar to what we were told about Gabriel Bortoleto, where, listen, we don't have a spot for you. We don't have a junior team like Red Bull does. We'd love to have you back in the future, but right now we're locked up.
Yep. Or we would like to take you and put you into the IndyCar team until we have something that opens up. And right. I think for him, it's more like, no, I want to do F1. I want F1 to be where I want to be right now. And one of those amicable splits where it's same sort of thing. Like,
right. So it's not your typical like Red Bull split where it's everybody's mad on the way out.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I don't see it that way anyways. I mean, maybe something else happened behind the scenes that I don't know, but my sources are pretty good on this. So
okay,
we'll see.
Tim, I trust you.
Yeah.
So in terms of this weekend, and I kind of want to wrap the show on this one. In terms of this weekend, this is a race that Max, it's the only race he's never won. And it is the one race a couple of years ago, and we talk about this all the time, where Red Bull finally didn't win a race, and it was Carlos Sainz in a Ferrari that took it. Is Max going to win this weekend? Is he coming out with a vengeance? How does that Red Bull car, which really impressed a couple of weeks ago, operate on this track in comparison to your McLarens, your Mercedes, and your Ferraris?
Obviously, it's going to be tough to take down McLaren here. It's such a high downforce circuit,
and that's what they're good at, right?
Yeah, and like we were talking about in our sim lap, is essentially the tight, twisty stuff, left to right, right to left, slow corners. Like McLaren, that's sort of their territory,
right?
And there's a lot of it in Singapore. So McLaren's definitely going to be the class of the field here. It's going to be down to who's going to come in and sort of break them up a little bit. And I think Max could be that driver that plays the spoiler in that sense and splitting them up. I think for Verstappen, coming in, he doesn't seem too nervous. I mean, obviously he's coming off this Nürburgring victory in the GT3 endurance race that he did there last weekend. But he does look pretty relaxed. And I think for him, like, the pressure isn't on him, right? I think for him, he sees this as 69 points. That's still a big deficit. Can I go in and mess around with these guys? Why not? And have some fun? I think that's the mindset. It sounds like it anyways. Where when you look at the McLaren drivers of Piastri and Norris, I mean, they've got a hungry Max Verstappen that could be, snapping at their heels. I haven't really seen anything like this where a driver comes from this far behind. I mean, there's stories like Alain Prost. I think it was in the 80s at some point where Prost did it. But I don't really know if that's even possible now. However, if one of these guys starts feeling the pressure and they make a mistake, I mean, Verstappen, all he has to do is just put himself in the window.
Okay.
And he'll be able to accomplish some pretty impressive things this weekend. But again, he's got to make sure he's put himself in the window to capitalize on whatever the fallout is between Piastri and Norris. Because all it takes, Adam, is for those two to have a coming together, and this whole championship has turned upside down.
Yeah,
and that can easily happen. So for people who are watching, don't think that can't happen, because it can, and it can happen very quickly. This is motorsports. Mm-hmm. I think for Piastri, it'll be interesting to see how he bounces back, Adam, because of the hard weekend he had in Azerbaijan.
I think so. And you know what? He needed that. I think sometimes when you don't have adversity, you worry about having adversity and how you'll react. And then when, and it's funny because teams go on winning streaks and then they talk about it like it's walking on ice, or like on the edge of a knife, because you're like, I've been perfect, nothing's gone wrong, and I feel like I'm cheating, or it's a bit of an imposter syndrome that sits in. And Oscar's been pretty close to perfect all season long, like really been solid as a rock. For him to have this, Tim, and how he bounces back from this will say a lot about who he is as a driver, and I think he's probably going to be fine.
I think for Oscar, he'd done the right things for himself after Azerbaijan. He'd done the normal things that he normally does. He goes home on the Monday, he goes and gets his groceries, which he normally does when he's done his race weekends. He does his sim when he's scheduled to. He relaxes when he has to. And he didn't, I should say, dig into the finer details of what went wrong in Azerbaijan. Yep. It was more along the lines of like, hey, 16 races have gone very well for me. And I just need to remember what I did in those races to make sure that I can easily go and just replicate what I've been doing most of the season into Singapore, and we will get the result. And that's his mindset. Mm-hmm. He talked a lot about that today during Media Day. And I found that really fascinating because sometimes as athletes, and Adam, you've covered athletes for so long, and it doesn't matter what sport it is. Sometimes when you have that, and for me, I definitely have done it. It's like when you've had a bad result, you kind of go back and you really dig into the details of why did you have a bad result. Yep. And then sometimes you get lost in those details. And then sometimes you think, if I just changed, and right there, that's when No, full stop. Whatever you're doing, put the books away, leave it, forget about it, move on to the next one. It was a bad race and leave it alone. I did it once, screwed me again for the next time. I never did it again after that. And I think for Piastri, he's smarter than that. He'll know that he doesn't need to change a thing. He just needs to come in, do what he does, and move on to the next race sort of deal. So, yeah, athletes are interesting, right? But yeah, I'm still going to be watching Oscar very closely this weekend.
Absolutely. Now, Ferrari's had a rough year. We've already mentioned what Charles Leclerc said. What kind of race do they need from these guys? What kind of results are we looking for here? If quote unquote they can't win, I'm sure that they can. For this to be considered a success without a win, what is it?
Getting on the podium. Like I think Adam. I think for Ferrari, I think they can have success here. I mean, I could be wrong. I don't think I am. This is a track that they have gone well at in the past. So you can imagine that things can't go that bad that quickly. If you look at Azerbaijan, they were good in Azerbaijan, like Charles Leclerc was and Ferrari was last year. And then this year, obviously, Leclerc made his mistakes, but I believe he made those mistakes because he knew that there was an opportunity that lay ahead of him. So again, the Ferrari was competitive in Azerbaijan. They were competitive in Azerbaijan the year before that. So when we come to Singapore, I believe that they can be competitive here as well. Now, can they be fighting for victory? I don't know. We'll see. Let's see what happens with free practice 3, it's free practice 2, because it's more free practice 2. We learn more about what the conditions are going to be like when it comes to Saturday's qualifying. So those two are more comparable. So we'll see what happens in free practice 2 to see how qualifying could go for them. But I think, Adam, they could be on for a pretty strong result here. And man, that team needs it. Like, holy.
No kidding. Baby, do they need
it. I can't believe Ferrari's been like this season. Like, it's just, and if you think about it, if you're Lewis Hamilton or Charles Leclerc, like, you just must be
flabbergasted. I mean, I'm sure all the way up they are. I mean, certainly the Italian press are. It's
100%.
It's been fascinating to watch. I mean, how many, we've heard rumors about Charles leaving. We've heard rumors about Lewis leaving. We've heard rumors about, Fred getting fired. Like, it's just, all of it's just too much, I think. Now, very quietly, I want to talk Mercedes for just a second here. George Russell had a really great comment about Max, racing in other circuits. He's like, well, maybe one day when I have 4 championships, I can do that too, right? Like, obviously, when you're a champion like Max is, you're afforded certain things that other drivers can't do. Yeah. Lewis being the same, and I think Sebastian and Fernando are, and a couple other guys that probably would have had leeway to do things that most drivers can't do. Mercedes had a bounce back weekend in Azerbaijan. Like, there's no question. It was really, really strong. I want to know what their outlook on the track is this weekend. According, this is a track. This is a team. For anybody that forgets that last year was really, really good in cold weather, not so good in hot. Mm-hmm. This is hot. They've improved that slightly, but is it enough?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think it could be a tough weekend for them. I think for like George, who I heard from today, still sounds a little under the weather. I mean, because he was really, really sick in Azerbaijan. I'm surprised he raced. And what a hell of a race the guy had. I will be interested to see how he handles the heat here, how that goes for him. And how that sort of, I know he doesn't do well with really high temperatures. However, that Mercedes was quick at this track a few years ago. Mm-hmm. And he stuffed it into the wall towards the end of the race, battling with, who was he fighting with? He was fighting with Norris, and there was someone else. It was him and Norris and someone else. There was like a 3-driver. I remember Norris had scrubbed the wall on the entry. And so George basically was just too close following. Like, he was following him. And when you follow another driver, whatever the mistake they make, you make it too, because you're following them. So essentially did the same thing, and that didn't work out for George. So can Mercedes be competitive here? I don't think so, only because of the heat. Who can be competitive here? I think Aston Martin can be competitive here.
So that's interesting. I was going to ask you about them. Why them?
The perfect amount of corners and speed and levels of downforce. All of that plays into their strengths. Teams can't usually run the ride height where they want to run it for this particular race because it's a bumpy street track, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to do that. And I think for Aston Martin, that's sort of in their wheelhouse, man. That's right in where their sweet spot is, where teams can't do those things, but they can do things that other teams can't, and that's what allows them to slot in. And this is a track that Fernando Alonso's always gone well at.
Yeah. Okay.
And so man, I'm telling you right now, just keep an eye on Aston Martin. That's all I'm going to say. Just keep an eye on him.
To quote one of the great movies of our time, their car is built for combat.
Oh, yes, it is.
Well, Tim, we're looking forward to your post-qualifying podcast on Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening, once things get wrapped up. And, of course, Tim and I will record, and new show will be out Monday morning. So be on the lookout for that. It's a race week. We're getting down to some of our last few races of the year, Tim. It's nice, though, that this year there's no champion. We don't know yet. There's plenty of time and plenty of race left to go. So it's going to be a fight, I think, right up till the last race.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Whatever happens this weekend, we're still going to have a championship that's going to come down to the last few races. And we are going to, we could get a 5-time world champion, Adam, or we could get a first-time driver champion. So it's going to be fantastic, the next few races that are left on this calendar.
Looking forward to it. Tim, thank you so much. We'll see you Saturday.
Thanks, buddy.